I was looking at Forbes Breaking News, which is one of my favorite news clips channels on YouTube. If you're not following it, go check them out. But I noticed that this video that got uploaded by them had like almost 3 million views. And I was like, huh? What's going on here? So I'm not super familiar with what even this is in regards to, but let's roll the tape. We've got this interview, not an interview, but we've got Ben Shapiro at a hearing on Capitol Hill. Not sure what these questions are going to be about, but apparently they were pretty funny. They got some laughs. So let's dig into this.
Mr. Swallwell.
Thank you. Mr. Shapiro, thank you for joining us today. I think it is important that you're here as one of the leading conservative voices in the country. And the country has, in the last couple weeks, talked a lot about and Googled Project 2025. It's one of the most Googled search terms right now. And you're not going to...
By the way, when the vast majority of people talk about Project 2025, I do not trust what they have to say because, bro, it's like Israel and Palestine. Almost anyone who talks about it is extremely biased to the point where I'm not sure if I should trust them. Okay? Any Republican's going to say it's good and the Democrats going to say it's bad. That just breaks it down. And the Democrats are going to say the worst possible things about it, and the Republicans are going to say the best possible things about it. It's difficult to get a reading on whether or not the people talking about this are actually being accurate or truthful, or they're just playing into their own partisan biases. Because let's be honest, and I even tried to do a video about this. I think I actually did do a video about this, and I kind of didn't even make up my mind yet because I wasn't able to dig into all the documents. We have 900-page PDFs. Everything is obfuscated. It's like, I wish in more plain language they laid out what it is that they want to do so that laymen like me can more easily read and break down the contents rather than having to rely on biased takes from Now This or something, So I did want to add that there. It's very possible that Eric Swallwell is lying about Project 2025 here.
It's one of the most Googled search terms right now. And you're not going to get any censorship from me. So I just wanted to know from your perspective, I think it would help us understand on just like a scale of 0 to 100%, how much do you support Project 2025?
I think, like President Trump, I haven't looked all that deeply at Project 2025, but it seems that Democrats on this committee, sort of like Peter Pan and Tinkerbell, if they say Project 2025 enough, their presidential candidate becomes alive again.
And so,
Yeah.
well, let's just talk about pieces of it, and I guess you can tell me if you support it. You probably want less bureaucracy, right?
I do.
I want less bureaucracy. You want more efficiency.
I do.
I want more efficiency. You want taxpayer money spent wisely.
I do. Congrats on becoming a Republican.
My parents would be proud. Mass deportations, it calls for that. Do you support that part?
I support the deportation of any illegal immigrant who's in the United States who is not of benefit to the generalized American public.
So if
that's a good take, although I will say, and this frustrated me to no end. Okay, sorry. This frustrated me to no end. In the RNC, there was all of this talk about deporting illegal immigrants. Deport. But you know what people didn't talk about? People didn't talk about, at least nearly as much, how the heck are we going to enforce and protect our own border? Which to me is that's priority number one. We're over here talking about how much water we're going to bail out of the ship. Ain't nobody talking about the hole that's in the bottom of it. Come on. The only reason we have illegal immigration is that immigration law is not being enforced to a certain extent, but also is that we've still got busted up sections of American fencing and American border wall that just has not been repaired. We have to talk about fixing up the border before we start talking about deportation. I wish Ben Shapiro spoke about this, because you know what's going to happen. You know what's going to happen if the mainstream right wing takes control. And I don't know, maybe Trump will even do this. Is if you look at the mainstream right wing narratives, what's going to happen is people are going to be like, deport all the illegal immigrants. People are going to be like, yay, woo. They're going to deport a bunch of illegal immigrants, and then they're just going to come right back in and then do the same stuff they were doing before. whether they were being violent or whether they were being peaceful. They're just going to keep it pushing. It doesn't do anything to deport illegal immigrants until you fix the problem at the border. I personally, now maybe this is my ENFP side coming out here, despite me being a Republican, but to me, I don't really have a problem with amnesty, to be honest, as long as our border is secure and we have no more illegal immigration. Because, hey, the people who are here, let's be honest, they're probably illegal immigrants who have been here for like 10, 15 years. Are those people really a threat to America? No. I think if those people have been here for so long and they haven't committed crimes, then what's the harm of keeping them here? Let them earn full wages. Give them all the protections and all the rights that American citizens have. Let them become American citizens. But they must follow the legal process to do so. So, in my opinion, it's like, hey, if I come across a legal immigrant, I feel like the law should be, if I come across a legal immigrant as a cop, I ID the person and I find some way to initiate them into some sort of American citizenry process or something, so they can become an American citizen and be like, hey, do this, fill this out, work on the process, however many years it takes, go through this process. And if they refuse to go through that process, or they let some things lapse between like the steps that need to be taken, then it's like, okay, next time we come across you, you are getting deported. But I think the people who are here, like, why have people here, kick them out, and then only to let them back in again legally? They're already here. Just go through the process. It'd probably be easier to just do that instead of wasting taxpayer resources on deporting people that you want to return and to return anyways. Like, that just doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. But I think that in either case, talking about deportations is dumb, because the issues on the border have not been resolved. We need to fix that problem first. So all these Republicans out here, the RNC, talking all this smack about deportations, whipping up their fan base into a frenzy. Okay, that's cool, but you're not solving the root problem. It's just so frustrating to see people go on and on and on about an issue, especially if they're right about the problem, but then they propose a solution that is not a long-term fix for the issue.
If they're picking agriculture that puts food on the tables of everyday Americans, they've never committed a...
How can we free the slaves? They pick all of our crops.
Puts food on the table. So if they're picking agriculture that puts food on the tables of everyday Americans, they've never committed a crime inside the United States, they didn't come across with documents, should they be deported?
If they have not paid taxes, and if their draw on the taxpayer benefits are larger than the contribution they're making to the economy, or if they're involved in criminal activity, they should be deported.
How do we measure that?
The same way that the IRS measures my income every year. It seems like if the IRS can track down every aspect of every receipt that I've ever submitted, and
So
they can do so for hundreds
pay...
of millions of other Americans, they can do that for illegal immigrants as well.
Isn't that faulty? Because I think aren't a lot of illegal immigrants paid through cash? Like, I don't know if they want to use like things like credit cards that can be tracked by the IRS and the banks, so they can be like, oh, hey, who was this? This person hasn't paid their taxes, then go after them. I don't know if the IRS is running around busting illegal immigrants, because I don't know if they're aware that illegal immigrants are around. I could be wrong. I'm not an illegal immigrant, so I'm not like an illegal immigrant expert. But that would just be my perspective. I would imagine that illegal immigrants are getting paid in cash,
except for the fact that no one knows how many are in the country thanks to this administration.
So you would be cool with creating a system where they could pay those taxes if they wanted to, and then stay and work and put food on our table?
It depends on how long it would take for them to pay the taxes, and they would also have to go presumably to the back of the line, although I'm not sure why I'm testifying about immigration policy at this point.
How about banning the abortion pill? That's part of Project 2025. Do you support that part?
I think that that's a state-by-state issue on a personal level.
I'm just asking you.
Sure, I'm a fully pro-life person, which means that I'm not in favor of the distribution of the abortion pill.
Banning same-sex marriage.
That was a weird, vague beginning of the answer. Like, yes, the answer is ban mifepristone. Ban it. Like, it's not that hard to say. Say it with your chest. I think you have one.
Marriage. What about that part?
I am in favor of traditional marriage between a man and a woman, and I am perfectly fine with anyone having any sort of voluntary sexual arrangement they seek. That's a different thing from whether the government should attach benefits to that personal relationship.
But you think it's a sin to have same-sex marriage?
I mean, I'm confused. Are you asking me as a religious Jew what I think about biblically?
I'm just asking, is it a sin to be gay?
Is it a sin to be gay? I mean, how long do we have here? 2 minutes? I mean, if the basic idea is that sexual orientation is up for government regulation, I'm not in favor of the government regulating the private consenting sexual activity of adults. That is a different thing, once again, from whether the government ought to engage in actual benefits for particular sexual arrangements that adults make.
But again, just
That's a good answer.
Is it a sin?
That's a really good answer. It's very rare that I'm like listening to a Ben Shapiro taking that. I'm like, that's like a really good answer, but it's a very good answer.
Or not?
From a religious Jewish perspective, orientation is not a sin, but activity is. That's also the same perspective of most major religions, so far as I'm aware.
Okay. And
yeah, and that's also the great answer to the whole, is it a sin to be gay? Being gay isn't really a sin, but gay sex is. You know, that's like the way to break it down. That was but I feel like a lot of religious people don't necessarily go down that route. They get like either they try to be too reductionist, like, oh yes, it's absolutely it's a sin. Meanwhile, they don't necessarily call their own proclivities to anger, even, no matter how repressed, sinful, or proclivities to lie or steal or do any other things. They don't call those sinful proclivities sins, just the actions that come out of that. Treat homosexuality different, or they give answers that make it seem like they do. So I do appreciate the nuance that Ben Shapiro brings to the table here.
how about cutting Social Security? Do you support that part of 2025?
I'm not sure what Project 2025's position on Social Security is. I'm in favor of the restructuring of Social Security along the lines of privatization and lowering and increasing the retirement age, because you, as well as every other congressperson, knows Social Security is going to go bankrupt, and yet everyone seems to have an interest in lying about it for the next decade and a half until we have to take austerity measures or radically increase inflation or taxes.
Don't destroy don't destroy Social Security. I think I've said this in a previous video, but Social Security needs to be phased out. There needs to be a point where it's like, hey, if you're below 21, you're not going to get Social Security, and we're not going to be adding anyone else to do the list of beneficiaries of Social Security. However, you will continue to pay the Social Security tax so that everyone who has been promised Social Security funds and returns will be able to get those. I think if you do that, you probably will eventually have people paying towards the system that outnumber the amount of people who are going to be supposed to be beneficiaries of Social Security. Therefore, will be able to continue to be funded until it ends, and then you're not going to have the whole Social Security problem. Social Security is a retirement program run by the government. Why does the government need to be in charge in forcing us to participate in a particular retirement plan? What if I don't want the government to be keeping? I'm going to give money to the government for them to give it back to me in 30 years. How much sense does that make? I would rather throw it on GameStop stock than have the government be in control of my retirement plans. Like, it's dumb.
And bans against books about slavery. Do you support that part about?
Why would I possibly be in favor of bans about books about slavery? That would be absolutely ridiculous. What I am in favor of is the idea that school libraries should be able to make decisions along the lines of what exactly is appropriate for, say, a seventh grader and whether they ought to be treated to cartoons and genderqueer. That's not quite the same thing.
And just because we found some receipts, you did say, I think homosexual activity is a sin.
Yes, I'm a religious Jew.
Sure,
that's true.
There's a genetic component.
You found me out.
Orientation. But the view of all religious people I know has always been that sexual behavior is something that is up to you. And you said, I may have a desire to sleep with many women, but I do not.
I agree with me. Yes, that's true.
Congratulations on your, I'm sure it's very hard to restrain yourself. Mr. Chairman, I just want to shift to...
What? This dude... one thing that's funny is listening to these people on Capitol Hill. I highly, highly, highly recommend that you guys listen to C-SPAN radio throughout the day while you're working, because you will hear these bonkers people speaking like Jasmine Crockett, going completely off the rails, cursing randomly for like no reason during these hearings. Or you'll be hearing people like Mr. Swallwell embarrassing himself by asking these really dumb, stupid, and recursive questions. Or you'll hear like some people who, they actually seem relatively impressive. And you're like, why have I never heard this person's name before? Like Ted Lieu is a leftist Democrat. But whenever I hear him speak, I'm like, this is a dude who like, I feel like he should run for president someday. I don't know if he would win, but like, he sounds like a dude who is the type of person that you'd want to run for president someday. Also, there's I remember listening to Cory Booker like several months ago during one of these hearings, and I was like, this guy sounds like someone who could run for president sometime. Oh yeah, he did. He should run again. So it's just like, it's always a fun experience to listen to these people during the hearings. I highly recommend you guys do that if you haven't done that already.
Alvin Bragg, he was supposed to be here this week, and he's not coming. And Hunter Biden was supposed to testify. Now he's not testifying. We were supposed to have votes on articles of impeachment, and we didn't. And
ooh, why are you pointing this out? You're a Democrat. That's like strange and slightly shady.
Again, we're just wondering, you guys write great press releases, but the payoff seems to never come. And so I guess we will keep waiting, and we'll do hearings like this. And finally, Chairman, you can yell.
Is it the Republicans' fault that Alvin Bragg is running away? It's not the Republicans' fault. Like, that's not. I don't get what that jab is. It's like, oh, you're trying to hold Democrats accountable, but they're not showing up. Ooh, you're so effective. Like no. The hate doesn't go to the Republicans at that point. What are you gonna do? You're gonna shackle up Alvin Bragg and force him to go into the chambers of the House, the chambers of Congress? Like, no. How are you gonna hate on the Republicans for that? That doesn't make any sense.
You cannot yell fire in a crowded theater, and that's a restriction on speech, as you have recognized before. But you can yell theater in a crowded fire, and you all can continue to do that all you want, and we'll just waste the American people's time.
Gentleman's time has expired, and I remind him of the first rule of holes. When you're in one, stop digging. Chair recognizes Mr.
Yo, it's true. Bro, how is the person who is like just I don't know who that person is, the chair or whatever, like, how do you so epically roast someone who is just like embarrassing himself so badly? That is so bad. That's so bad. Wow. Wow, I'm sure that Eric Swalwell's voters are very proud that they support him after that display there.